Ladies and gentlemen, gather round and brace yourselves, for the clandestine, shadowy tendrils of the Dero community are about to wrap around your consciousness and throttle your sanity. Today, on the Outlaw Crypto Podcast, we have none other than the enigmatic figure known as Secret Name Basis, descending from the digital ether to spill the secrets of the elusive, the mysterious, the unholy Dero. Imagine, if you will, a universe where every whisper of your transactions is drowned in a sea of cryptographic madness. Dero is not just a blockchain, it is a fortress, a black mirror reflecting your deepest, darkest financial desires back at you, encrypted beyond comprehension, impenetrable, unfathomable. This beast, this abomination has been conjured from the arcane depths of Golang, stitched together with threads of homomorphic encryption, security, and privacy, whispering dark promises of invincibility against the malevolent forces of protocol level and network attacks. Oh, the Dero mission, you ask. It's a ghastly vision, a new blockchain world order where privacy reigns supreme and transparency is but a faint dying echo in the cryptographic void. These spectral blocks haunt the network, settling transactions in the blink of an eye, ensuring that every miner, every cog in this infernal machine is rewarded for their relentless toil. But the madness doesn't end there. Oh no, the Dero network is a TLS-secured, UDP-wielding Leviathan, a fortress against eavesdroppers and tamperers, a citadel for the decentralized privacy zealots. It's a nightmare that scales, a fever dream of enterprise services capable of handling thousands of clients per second, driven by a team with decades of cryptographic expertise, their minds twisted and sharpened by years of blockchain development. With each milestone, from the migration to Golang, to the birth of the Atlantis codebase, from the haunting rocket bulletproofs to the fiendish Stargate RC2 release, Dero has cemented its place as a harbinger of a new dark age. So tune in, if you dare, as Secret Name Basis drags you deeper into the abyss, unraveling the eldritch secrets of Dero on the Outlaw Crypto Podcast.
Welcome back to the Outlaw Crypto Podcast. This is episode 7, and I am here with Secret Name Basis from the Dero project. We're here to talk about Dero, and I'm very happy to have him here. Secret Name Basis, how are you doing today, man?
Really, really good. I'm actually super happy, and I'm ready to start chatting with people. I do need to make a point of clarification. I'm not from the Dero project.
Okay.
It's not my project. I just happen to be some guy on the internet who discovered the Dero project. I'm happy to talk about that adventure, but I love the Dero project, and so I talk about it all the time. But I'm not from the Dero project. I'm just a guy who really likes it.
Okay,
So.
Cool. Well, thank you for that clarification, and I will be candid with you as well. Like, I follow a guy, Ulmanon, who's in the Dero community, and I asked him, like, hey, put me in touch with someone. He told me to talk to Chikapoo, I think his name is.
Shakipoo, he's French.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I talked to him, and then he put me in touch with you. So I had no clue, actually, who I was talking to, but I'm happy that you're here to talk about Dero. So let's do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, you basically mentioned, like, two of my really good friends in the community, and so, like, I have to give a shout out to Shakipoo. He's a huge purveyor of art. He loves representing artists in the crypto scene, so a big shout out to him. He actually happens to be our server manager for the secret Discord server. He's demonstrated over the last year or so that he just kind of naturally fits like being a manager. So I was just like, look, you're the server manager. Like, we're just gonna refer to you on some stuff around here. So I really appreciate that. And Olmo, dude, he's an old god, and I really appreciate that guy. Always swings for privacy, and I think that that's super rad. So I'm really glad that that's kind of how we got connected. I was kind of curious, just as like context, what's a little bit more of your story, and like how you got into crypto? I'm just wildly curious.
Okay. Yeah. No, I got into crypto kind of early, like learning about it, I guess. I first started hearing about it like back in the day. I was on the Shroomery and I was reading about like magic mushrooms and stuff. And these guys were talking about Bitcoin and like buying stuff. And then I also had friends that were like buying weed and shit on the internet. And I was like, what? And they were telling me about Bitcoin. And like around that time, I was like a gold bug. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was into gold because I thought gold like could protect you from inflation for a lot of the same reasons that people choose Bitcoin, right? So like when I found out about Bitcoin, like I wasn't like too much into the like drug stuff like my buddies were and shit, but like you know what I mean? I bought weed a couple times like off the Silk Road or whatever. And then like I started learning about like the monetary policy of Bitcoin and like the whole cypherpunk thing and like how it was like a parallel economy of like peer-to-peer cash, right? So like that's what kind of brought me into crypto. And since that time, like, you know, I was like learning about crypto. I didn't start buying Bitcoin until like 2014 or something, but then I don't know. I've just been around. Like I started working in the industry a little bit, like writing articles and stuff like that and doing podcasts. And now I am into privacy coins basically.
So seeing as that kind of brings us to privacy coins. So what kind of inspired the podcast? Because like I love the auditory field of like journalism, and I've really appreciated your approach so far. So what kind of inspired the podcast?
I guess basically because I think right now with the current climate, like privacy is under attack and like we need to do something. And like my skill set, I guess, is like podcasting and talking about crypto. So like I want to do something that I feel like not a lot of people are covering. Like privacy is kind of like a taboo subject, especially with like all these other projects trying to get like regulatory like approval and this kind of thing. And I believe like the whole cypherpunk, like punk, like emphasis on the punk, is kind of against that. So like I want to support like the people that are doing privacy based projects right now because I believe like the immutable transparent ledger of all your transactions, like that is a CBDC. So like we with the recent attacks on like Bitcoin privacy, like we're in a grave state right now. So we need to focus on privacy.
Dude, I can feel that, man. I can feel that. You are like an OG. You don't mind if I kind of share my journey a little bit, like a little bit of context?
Yeah, of course.
So I have kind of like two phases for how I experienced crypto. And the first was kind of similar to your story. Friends talking about Bitcoin, buying drugs. My bro, he did like volume of pot and he didn't like dealing with, piles of cash. And so for him, the use case was that it kept him secure from his druggy buddies from stealing his cash. And, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then he kind of showed me exchanges and stuff like that and like where you can buy it and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But it didn't really click with me. I just saw it as like a convenience for him as a dealer. Like, you get privacy from your roommates who are going to steal your cash. You're always having to figure out, where do I put this pile? Where do I get a safe? And he just didn't want to deal with that. So he just did Bitcoin. And then years passed, and he dropped that, probably because price went south. I don't know. Years went by, and then the bull market, the famous bull market, the road to the 69, bro. I was in a position in my life where like I've been reading like a lot of books on like investing and looking at like different kinds of investments, and like I could feel like precious metals were really important, because like that's physical tangible wealth. The problem was like physical tangible wealth can still be confiscated by the government, so that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
And so I kind of saw like the value of like investing into the crypto market. But when you're like new and during the bull rush to 69, that was just like you were just putting money on an exchange and buying transparency coins. And that was pretty much everybody. And at least that's kind of what my take was. And then I learned that there were other kinds of, projects, like different chains. There's the Bitcoin chain, and there's the Ethereum chain, and then there's the Monero chain, but you can't get Monero on Coinbase. Why? So then you got this question: why are some chains considered more valuable than other chains? Wow.
Sorry. I'm in the tropics and I got lightning, man.
Dude, that's freaking awesome. It makes it so punctuated. So I think we're actually storming up here. So I live in Utah.
Okay.
That's where I live.
It's beautiful out there.
Yeah, it's really lovely, and we've got a lot of rain right now, which is a huge blessing.
Nice.
So I relate to your situation.
We're in rainy season right now, so same thing.
Nice. Yeah. So like, why doesn't Coinbase offer Monero? And that was kind of where the start of the privacy journey begins. Is why is it that some crypto exchanges don't allow for some chains but allow for others? And that's kind of where I started to take a look at privacy, because it was being like, these are supposed to be immutable ledgers. This is supposed to be the financial revolution, blah, 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 blah. Why are we saying that some chains are not allowed to play? And then, like you said, regulatory compliance. So once there was like a big brouhaha about how capital gains would impact you in the crypto market, there was like some tax proceedings that preceded the huge fallout from when we hit the all-time high at 69, and everybody realized that they had huge tax bills to pay because of some of the regulatory compliance that was being put. And because they were done on transparency chains, people were going to be held liable. And we're actually seeing that in the market right now. We have people who are going to jail because of things that they've done on transparency chains, and it's provable, right? And it's really a shame that they didn't see it sooner, and that they didn't communicate it, what's going to happen to others. So anyway, the price fell out from everybody. Elon Musk said Bitcoin's bad for the environment, and everyone cried, and so everybody dumped their bags. And I was, consumer, retail purchaser of crypto, and so I got to experience that firsthand, watching, number go down, just number go painstakingly down, and never stopped. And so for me, crypto was kind of like this, like, oh, what an accident. What did I get myself into? How did I get scammed into this? And that's kind of where my attitude came. And I went looking for other cryptocurrency projects to try and like recoup my money. And so I discovered many more different kinds of elaborate scams. And I really appreciated your last podcast talking about how Wownero boys like to point out scams. I too like to point out scams. It's one of my favorite things, but I like to do it in a very subtle way. So anyway, I discovered all these different scams, lost a shitload of money, became very wise. I guess you could say I tried to become more wise at the scams that are involved in cryptocurrency. And anyway, what ended up happening was I found all of my bags in Monero, all of it. Okay. And I felt like absolutely secure with that decision to have all of my bags in Monero, because look, at that point, like, I could just fall off of a bridge, or I could, fall off a boat, and they're gone. Sorry, but I'm sorry, they're gone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like where. Is it cool with you if I tell you the thing that I don't like about Monero?
Sure, of course. Why not?
All right. The thing I don't like about Monero is there's no smart contract. And having come from like the Web3 DeFi world, to just as a consumer, I was kind of wanted to see smart contracts on a privacy chain, and that just didn't exist. And so I went trolling through the 4chan daily, hourly general thread for Monero, and someone was bitching about the same thing. And they said, someone replied, Anon said, well, you can always check out Dero. They have smart contracts on a homomorphically encrypted blockchain. At least that's the plan. And I was like, whoa, what the hell is this? So I went looking for Dero, and I found it on TradeOgre, and I found out TradeOgre has Monero. So I was like, well, why don't we just start researching this project? Because that's what you do with crypto. You do your own research. And so I started learning about what the project was and who was involved. So do you want me to start talking about kind of what I found?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I want to get into why you've been so dedicated to Dero, and I agree with you first and foremost that we need like a Web3 style, multi-chain privacy coin kind of DeFi ecosystem.
I mean, we can talk about the philosophy or even the politics around blockchain assets and like privacy. We can talk about that, but for some context, I guess, can I just tell you what I discovered when I did my own research about Dero?
Yeah, of course.
Nice. So there was this like dude named Captain Dero. Captain seems like a pretty common thing in the crypto space, like for a moniker, but this was Captain Dero. And Captain Dero on the Bitcoin Talk forums basically called his shot and said he was going to build a homomorphically that he called Dero. And one forums it eventually grew, and they had like a Slack at one point, and they launched their like alpha release called Atlantis. That was like their first implementation, and it was kind of interesting. It was a UTXO model style blockchain where you had to scan the whole blockchain to know your balance. Very, very similar to Monero in that regard, and similar to Bitcoin in that regard. That's UTXO models to begin with. And then come to find out, the developers were not really pleased with the performance that they were getting. Even though they were doing pretty good with 75 TPS, they felt like they needed more. So they spent like 2 years prior to the Stargate launch, which is the current implementation of Dero. They spent like 2 years building a new database, and that database is called Graviton. And Graviton is kind of an interesting tool. The real power behind Bitcoin is that it was a open source database. That's kind of what its real powerhouse was. Bytecoin and Monero, the implementation of their database was kind of like, this is kind of like high level nerdy stuff, but databases matter in the crypto world, because that's what Bitcoin showed us, is that people will use an open source version of a database, and they'll use it globally, trustlessly, permissionlessly. So that's kind of neat. Anyway, so they went and built this database called Graviton, and it's really, really fast, really, really fast. And now they can process about 750 TPS, which for encrypted data stores, that's pretty freaking impressive. And anyway, so they built this whole thing, and then they went and built a virtual machine to sit on top of their blockchain protocol so that they could do smart contracts. And that virtual machine is called the Dero virtual machine. And the Dero virtual machine runs off of a kind of a really simple human readable language called DBM Basic. It's really simple. Like in 5 minutes, I could explain how the language works. And pretty much your grandma could probably start writing smart contracts on Dero, because she grew up learning about Basic, the language. Maybe your mom can, or your uncle, maybe your aunt can. I don't know. Anyway, so when I kind of saw that they made a privacy blockchain that was an account-based model with instant sync, instant balances, 18-second transaction times, written entirely in Golang, which is phenomenally easy to learn. And that's actually a part of my story. So I was like, look, I don't even care what the price is right now. I've already been so hurt by the cryptocurrency world in terms of price valuations. And my bags have only ever gone down. So everything into this right now. And I rolled everything into Dero that I had in the crypto space because I knew what this thing was, and this was the next stage for crypto. It was just really early, and it wasn't done by venture capitalists. It was done by some turbo math nerds, and so I became addicted to the community, and that's kind of how I started into Dero.
What role do you have in the community now? I know you're an active participant, but you mentioned that you're a programmer a little bit. So, like, are you making applications in the Dero ecosystem?
I got started helping out with tech support in Dero. I was just showing people that they could mine Dero on their phones, mine Dero on their computers. I wrote some tutorials on how to run Dero on your Android device. Nothing that I would say like programming, just documentation, just documenting my efforts.
Okay.
And that's kind of where I got started. I started exploring the repo a little bit deeper, and I found some tech that nobody was using, and it was called a Pong server. And the developer captain kind of showed me how it works. And this is all documented in Discord. The Discord server is kind of like the official Discord server is like the place to learn everything about Captain and the history of Dero. Yeah, so in terms of applications, I've built a lot of things since Captain showed me how his Pong server works, but I built a swap. I built a Dero XMR swap at one point. That was kind of fun. I built a Discord Dero bot. That was kind of fun. I built a journal that runs on top of Dero. I built a messenger that runs on top of Dero. That already is done in Ngram. It's actually done by the wallet natively, but I built a messenger on top of that. And then I recently built a website that lets people list their smart contract. So I've just done like a lot of like fun applications around Dero, like nothing really serious about it, but I really think it's a cool project.
I do too. I just wanted to ask you, like, I guess for like people that don't know, kind of like myself, can you explain what homomorphic encryption is, why it's so desirable, and then like, I guess how Dero maybe differs from like something like Monero or Wownero? I know that we share similar like techniques for privacy and stuff, but like I know Dero has some like interesting things like it's called El Gamal or something like that.
Yeah, El Gamal encryption.
Yeah, can you kind of give us like a layman's understanding of how they're different and like what Dero has to offer?
Yeah, I can try. I can try to make it as like you can say layman, but I'll definitely do my best to like not sound like an idiot, but also try to make it intelligible, because these guys who built Dero, they're turbo math nerds, bro. Like they're really freaking smart.
Yeah.
Sometimes the things that they're doing in the code is like it boggles the mind. But the idea of homomorphic encryption is basically that you can create a secret that is only shared between two parties, a sender and a receiver. And so that everyone else on the network, because they lack the secret of that, that object, they can't access it. So that homomorphic encryption allows us to do computations on stores of data without the rest of the database seeing it or anyone else seeing it. So if my bro, Saucy XMR, that's your handle on Twitter, if he's got a balance on Dero and secret name basis has got a balance on Dero, if secret name basis sends to Saucy XMR some balance, well, the way that Dero works is it can handle the computation of your balance transfer from one party to the other without decrypting the object and therefore exposing it in plain text to the rest of the world. And you and I are the only people who can see that computation or the result of it. So that's essentially what homomorphic encryption is. It's basically Alice gave Bob a secret, is the best way to probably put it.
Okay. And then how does homomorphic encryption allow for Dero to have like smart contracts, I guess, whereas like Monero has like different encryption and there's no scripting and all that. So how is like Dero managing this whole smart contract ecosystem?
Yeah, so the virtual machine is a line-by-line interpreter for data stores. It's baffling. There are different mechanisms that are running on this general purpose platform. It's not just passing integers between parties. So I kind of described the account-based model and how it uses El-Gamel encryption, which was invented by an Egyptian, by the way, and was you can find references to early references of it being used in crypto in the Zephyr protocol. And then Dero went and built their own blockchain to handle that encryption schema instead of leveraging like an Ethereum layer 1.
Okay, so, I just want to say on the record that El-Gamel is like a way cooler name than Peterson.
Yeah, it's a cooler name, that's for sure. So essentially, the way the Dero virtual machine works is it's a line-by-line interpreter, and it takes each line of your DVM basic and renders a result from that line. So unlike Ethereum, where you have to pre-compile some binaries and install that bytecode into the virtual machine and run it, which can have backdoors built into it. The Dero virtual machine doesn't operate like that. It's kind of like a punch card system. You put in the punch card. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and the funds are refunded. That's how that works. So how this is different from Monero is kind of interesting. So Monero and Wownero and other Bytecoin implementations, they use a method of privacy. It's a method called obfuscation, where they basically put a bunch of surplus data, a lot of waste data, in my opinion, front facing on their database to create plausible deniability of your use. That's kind of what they do. With encryption, you're a little different here because you're essentially you're building cipher text, and without the available keys to unlock that cipher text, you can't open it. It's actually private. It's actually private. If you don't have the secret, you're not involved. Wownero, they're actually with Monero and Wownero, they're public blockchains, not private blockchains, but they use obfuscation to create plausible deniability. That's their privacy.
Okay, well, one quick question. Like, I understand the differentiation right now, like with how Monero operates currently, but how would that compare, I guess, like in the face of Monero implementing these full chain membership proofs, which they're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, like it doesn't matter to me personally how obfuscated you make your blockchain. It doesn't matter to me. If it is in plain text, you can identify patterns. I might not be able to identify them right now, but I can nearly guarantee you that with enough computational power and enough money behind me, I can find patterns. If it is encrypted, that becomes orders of magnitude more difficult for me to identify patterns that can identify you, because I have to go and break the encryption first with Dero. Then I have to go through the ring signatures that they use on Dero. So I have to go through obfuscation as well So I have 2 levels of complexity that I have to scale in order to identify your transaction. And that's not easy. Not easy at all. Almost impossible.
And how much different is Dero from the code base of Monero? Because I've seen like articles, like maybe they're not accurate, but I've seen articles that imply that Dero is like forked Monero's code base and is using like significant portions of Monero's code base. So like, how is
that's such a rad question, and we've like as a community we've been dealing with it for a really long time. My easiest way of answering this question is when I add 2 plus 2, it equals 4, right?
Okay.
Right. Okay. So there's a way that we can come to the result known as 4 by adding 2 plus 2. And so that protocol of arriving at 4 from adding 2 plus 2 is something we all kind of know, right? It's like a general way of doing things. So when there's a way in which you implement a protocol, there's always going to be, if you have like a Venn diagram, there's always going to be areas where things lay over. That's just how it works. Because code is a logical construction. It's not like creative writing where like I can say, oh, because you used Ernest Hemingway's words word for word here without quoting him, you're plagiarizing. Plagiarism does exist. That's a reality. But the way in which things are done logically is oftentimes what people are upset about, is that you identified.
I don't think it's plagiarism either, because like I believe in open source software. Like I'm like a free software foundation kind of guy. So like, if you want to copy code from an open source project, do it. I was just wondering like how like different the code base is, I guess, and like what you guys have done to like different.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of like, that's like such a tricky thing to say, because like what it all boils down to in the end, all cryptocurrency projects are just, this sounds really silly, they're model view controllers. They're almost every single one of them is just kind of like, you have models, you have views, and you have controllers. And that pattern exists in every website, every enterprise. That's beyond just crypto, right? You have models of data, you have ways to view that data, and you have controllers for that data. And that's going to be done in different ways. Anyway, so if it is that Captain, saw their implementation of a blockchain protocol and identified like, oh, that's how you do a thing and that's how you do that thing. Okay, that's cool. I wasn't there when he made it. But I do know that when you have like a protocol or a way that you do things, like for instance, when you shovel a hole in the ground, you're going to move dirt away from the ground and make a hole. That's how you do that hole. When you're inventing a blockchain protocol, there's a way that you do that. And when you do that, it's going to look similar to that one over there in some regards. Now, some of the finer tuned solutions, that's where things get interesting. Like, for instance, they went and invented their own database. Like, that's pretty freaking significant in terms of how they are managing their data. They went and made their own database tool to handle these encrypted storehouses of value. It's kind of like the most understated component of it. And not only that, they also went and implemented a virtual machine on top of that database so that they could parse smart contracts, and voila, we have NFAs or non-fungible assets on Dero, which can be passed around homomorphically, which is pretty freaking cool. That means privately.
Yeah, it is cool.
It's pretty cool. So as you can tell, I love the Dero project. I'm like really, and I'm big about it too. I've had a chance to be a part of what I would say are some pretty historic moments in the history of Dero. Like when we held the first public on-chain vote in Dero. That was the Devote contract. That was actually really cool. I also got to be, I got to watch recently a gentleman build a decentralized marketplace protocol. That was pretty freaking cool. And right now, what I'm getting to watch, hopefully, is a couple other cool projects come live. So, Yeah, man, I love Dero. I could talk about it all day.
Nice. Well, hey, I don't want you to take this next question the wrong way because, like, with Bitcoin, like, there's like an emission of funds, right? Where like most of the coins were emitted to like early miners and stuff, and like Monero kind of has a similar thing going on. My guy Jay Winter from Wownero has like his different emission schedule, and he also likes like the Grin emission schedule. Like with Dero, like what was like the like I guess like creators allocation, and then like how was the rest of the coins distributed to the market?
Yeah, this is actually a cool question. So we're going to be talking about the pre-mine. I think that the pre-mine, which was heavily documented and communicated early on and often, has two components. So the pre-mine, which was of 10%, the total number of coins, we like to conveniently say 21 million, which was an upgrade from the curve from Monero, which was like 18.4. So we did see we went more towards the Bitcoin curve and kind of straight away from the lower tail end. So it is hard capped, if I'm not mistaken, because at some point it stops coming out, and that curve is pretty well documented. So the pre-mine is one of the most like contested elements of the Dero project, but it was well documented that the Dero developers would get paid 1 million Dero for building the Dero project. The next million Dero is for community development, and that community development is really defined by it hasn't really.
Who has that Dero though? Is that like in a DAO or is that like in somebody's hands?
That's a fantastic question. So, in my opinion, because this is a privacy network, I can't tell you who holds the coins, right? What I can tell you is that there will be, because that's how Captain works, there will be a smart contract that will handle the community funds that Captain has set aside. Who specifically has those funds? That's quite honestly, I don't know. No one's handed me a transaction proof to say, hey, this is who has the coins, right? I don't know. And that's kind of the benefit, is I don't know who it is and I don't know where it is. And quite honestly, one of the best parts.
Do things like DAOs exist in Dero?
Mm-hmm. Oh man, so that's actually a great question. So I do intend to make a DAO at some point. The secret Discord server has really kind of become a life of its own. We have a lot of very, very influential people in that server, and they want to see it succeed as the developer incubator that it is. And I want to see it succeed too. And so we will be issuing a DAO for the secret Discord server at some point. We're not quite there yet. There's just some things that I want to see happen in my trajectory as a developer before I go and turn that into a DAO. But as for Dero itself, I know that my friend Apollo, he's done some work with DAOs. You can explore some of his on-chain DAOs that he's made using. Well, if you have a difficult time finding them, come hit me up and I'll point you at some examples of DAOs. But there are some that are pretty cool. The Dero Foundation hasn't implemented a DAO quite yet. I think it's just we're waiting for a couple more pieces to come together. So I hope that kind of creates a little bit of enlightenment. So there are DAOs. You can create DAOs. Are there official DAOs? Not yet, but there will be. And
And what about like smart contracts? You mentioned that Dero has like these homeomorphically encrypted smart contracts. Like, what kind
Okay.
of smart contracts do
Yeah.
you do? Like, are people doing like DeFi kind of things, or like NFTs, or like what are people doing? Are they doing like loans? Like, how is that?
So that's a really great question. So so first of all, the Dero smart contract is not a homomorphically encrypted smart contract. It is a public, open source, and auditable smart contract. In my opinion, that is the safest way to do a smart contract, because do you trust putting your money in a black box that you can't audit, you can't check, you can't observe, you can't record?
I'm a fan of Monero and Wownero. I mean,
No. When I say
or whatever, but I mean it's kind of a black box.
No, when I say put money into a black box, I have somebody who says, "Hey, bro, put your 100 Dero here, and I promise you these things are going to happen. But you can't see my code. I'm not going to. It's closed source code, and the computations on your money is closed source too, so you can't see it. I mean, would you trust that guy?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably not. So we don't. So Dero doesn't offer those kinds of smart contracts. They offer open source, auditable smart contracts. Now, where the homomorphic encryption comes in, once an asset is emitted from a Dero smart contract, it is private. Once it is in your wallet, and this is the big difference between assets on Ethereum and assets in Dero, is in Ethereum and EVM compatible blockchains, or the copy pasta chains, assets only exist inside of the smart contracts themselves. So, for instance, if you hold a huge USDT balance, well, Tether could go to your account and they could deplete your funds or freeze your funds or lock your funds or move your funds without your permission, because they are the contract owners. But on Dero, there are contract owners, but then the assets are emitted from the contract and they land in your wallet, hence making it impossible for contract owners to know your balances or know anything about you and the assets you hold. So that's just to create some clarification there. Okay. So in terms of in terms of DeFi, so unfortunately, most of DeFi is a total scam, and I know that because I've experienced it. And because of that, there are a lot of really, really, really smart people who don't want to create DeFi scams on Dero. And so as a result of that, there isn't a lot of DeFi solutions provided on Dero at this time. So is there lending and borrowing? No one's doing lending and borrowing right now on Dero that I know about. We have lotteries. I've seen some lotteries. We have dexes. There's a really cool dex implementation that's coming out
on them, or no?
So the problem with every dex is that there's always one contract owner. This is partly why I built my own swap, because I wanted to own my own trades. So there is some volume on the DEX, on PySwap's DEX. There's some volume there.
What other assets are on the DEX?
So they do. So the difficulty about this DEX and talking about this DEX is the developer of the DEX is unfortunately kind of walked away from his project. So it's not really well implemented. So I don't really like to talk about his DEX. There's another one that's coming out. It's called Ghost Trading.
I saw that.
Yeah, Ghost Trading. We're really intrigued by this DEX and to see how it flourishes. Right now, it's a little difficult to gain access to because it's so new and developers are hard to come by. So we're going to watch that and see how that plays out. And I imagine that if it's a pretty good implementation, there's going to be a lot of different iterations on that DEX. I think we'll see a lot of, I call them the DEX cults, people who get really excited about a DEX, go and shill the project to a lot of people. I think that's going to happen a lot on Dero in the near future. We do have, in terms of DeFi, I really don't. The problem is a lot of people in Dero really abhor the concept of debt and leverage, except for when they're dealing with a centralized exchange where they can leverage 100x. So that's kind of tricky. Is like, when you have developers who are not aligned philosophically with creating leverage instruments, it doesn't exist yet. So if there are,
what direction are they going with this whole like smart contracting capability?
Oh, okay. So Dero is a general purpose platform, and it's basically done. The thing that's of interest right now is and when I say you, I don't mean you specifically, but maybe you specifically. What are you going to do on Dero, right? What are you going to do with its smart contracts? Because I think that a lot of people look to, and this is very typical of the cryptocurrency scam that is the industry, is that most people look to the blockchain developer for what are we doing with these smart contracts? And the developer is looking at everyone and going, what are you guys going to do with my smart contracts? And so that's why I got really excited about the Devote contract that me and Alumno made. It's another shout out to Alumno. He built a Dero name service that's essentially can replace your DNS servers. So it's an on-chain DNS server, which is.
I think maybe I saw you tweeting about that, or somebody else. Yeah, I saw tweets about this recently.
Being able to set up resolvers like that, but I'm not going to get into super nerdy stuff because I think it's good to keep this pretty general and kind of hit the general notes.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, another question that I want to ask you is like, right now I believe in like a multi-chain ecosystem. I believe that like this whole idea of hyper-Bitcoinization is never going to happen because like in the history of the world, like everybody's always had different monies, and I believe that's going to continue, and they're just going to choose different digital monies or whatever, right? For whatever reasons.
Yeah.
But like with Dero, like, are you guys working on doing like bridges? Like Monero right now, it's got like one with Bitcoin Cash, one with Ethereum, one with Decred. Like, is there any effort in the Dero community like to try to make like a multi-chain ecosystem of privacy?
So, like I said, I made my own swap. So I personally have, been a part of I've essentially been the bridge. I've been the swap. I've been the exchange. I've done that, right? So I don't see it that Dero doesn't want to have interoperability with other chains. Because at the end of the day, it's really
is
who's
it like
the guy.
A technical barrier, like because of the difference in the encryption, or how does that work?
No, because most of the crypto scam is telling you, oh, we have atomic swaps, oh, we have this and that, but like typically at the end of the day, it's usually some custodian that's conducting the transaction for you, versus you being the custodian of your own exchange.
No, I agree. But right now, like projects like Basic SwapDex or like Bisq maybe are doing like similar things. So like
the essentially something like Basic Swap could very easily, because of how it's set up, they could deploy a Dero node. They could host swaps. They could build in their back end programming however they want to facilitate swaps. They can do that. That's not even a problem. It's just a matter of whether or not the developers are interested in engaging with that endpoint. And then that's the thing is, right, most devs understand this concept that you're touching an endpoint, you're touching a database, and then you're controlling the data from that database, the models of data, and then you're rendering some kind of view for the user to use. So if Basic Swap wants to take control of the models of data that Dero provides, they're welcome to do it. No one's stopping them, right? So what I want to entertain you with, more than just, yeah, shit, it's easy, right? I could probably do it, but I don't want to because I don't work for Basic Swap. I just do my own thing. What I was getting at, though, is Dero provides something that most people don't quite understand because they haven't had the opportunity to just sit and read the project and what it really does. And the only way you're really to see that is you have to read the code. And the code's written in a pretty easy language called Golang. But if you don't understand basic syntax of computer science, a lot of its concepts get lost on you. And if you don't use an interactive developer environment, it can be a little confusing. Regardless, Dero has been constructed to house multiple networks. So right now, Dero in its current implementation has network 1. We can have as many networks as we want to have, actually. We can create different implementations of Dero that can house entirely different assets and that can run at completely different parameters and have it all exist interoperably inside of the Dero network. But we're not there yet because people are still concerned about the interoperability between Dero and the EVM or Dero and Archain. And there's some people in the community that have built that. And I know that there are people who are interested in furthering those trading pairs. So yeah, it's easy. Guys, just go do it. And if you have any questions, hit me up. For real.
What do you see as like the most optimal thing to build on Dero? Seeing that you're talking about building stuff on Dero, like what does the community look like?
Like right now, that's kind of where my main focus has been. So I guess I can give you drama. There's been some drama in the community lately, and there's a lot of concern, and it's how it goes with any centralization versus decentralization. So, man, I love talking. So I've got to try and like wrap this up. Right now, the big thing is how are we facilitating asset transfers? That's kind of like where we're focused at right now, I think, as a community. I know that with SiteRaiser's construction of Dero List, which is a decentralized marketplace protocol, a completely private decentralized marketplace protocol, which was incredible to watch him build. I really am excited to see more people take advantage of that because it's open source, it's decentralizable. You could go and make your own decentralized marketplace today, sell whatever the hell you want, and no one will be able to stop it, period. Because of how private the whole thing was constructed, it's all under a state that makes it impossible, seemingly impossible, to decipher the transaction. Anyway, that's Dero List. Really love that. So I think marketplaces is kind of the thing we're really focused on right now. I'm like half-assing kind of building a way for people to sell their non-fungible assets. So you have these non-fungible tokens or NFTs, but we talk about non-fungible assets on Dero because an asset is different. And I think that human beings can all agree that an asset is different than a token. And so we build smart contracts that facilitate the functions of an asset that we find admirable or we would want. Traditionally, when you have an NFT, you have to give the token or permission to move the token by some server owner, which means then you have to rely on the centralization of computation on your assets. That's a problem. So we have these NFAs that are smart contracts that run on Dero that puts the functionality inside of the smart contract that you, the owner of the smart contract, can use at any time. And you don't have to rely on some server or some website or some programmers to run your asset or move your assets. You have control over that. And that shift is so beyond 99.99% of the crypto market. Bro, let me dial this back for a second. There's a dude on X, and he's in Spaces. His name is Alchemist. He is a crypto influencer who is obsessed with Pepe. He's obsessed with it. Good for him. What he doesn't know is that he is inundating people with a transparency scam that's going to get a lot of people really, really hurt. He doesn't really quite understand that. He also doesn't understand that the mechanisms for moving that asset are outside of his control. He doesn't understand that because he just sees number go up. What we've been trying to tell people, and this is actually being found, it's seen, it's observable, with there's a controversy around the website known as Dero NFTs, that the owner of Dero NFTs is the only person who upholds the G45 NFT standard. And if he stops running that website, that means all of those tokens, all of those NFTs that were minted, his standard, become, well, they have to go to a secondary market to sell them because his platform doesn't host them. So the NFA is not necessarily a response to that, but it's an option that you can take custody for the transfer of your assets, and it can be done in a permissionless, trustless way. It's just that up till recently, no one's given us permission to hold assets this way. Go to any other blockchain protocol in the entire crypto space and ask them, can me, the owner, can I run this smart contract and can I do it from my wallet? And almost every single one of them is going to laugh at you because you can't. It's not built that way. So Dero's been built differently from the Ngram release that they've made. You can go directly to the smart contract and start the sale of the asset. You can start an auction right from your wallet, and that smart contract is there. And that's what this, if you go to secretnamebasis.site, you can go and look with my really shitty attempt at a marketplace. And I say shitty in that the front end looks terrible. The back end's really sexy if you care about that stuff. But I always care about the back end on my girls. So with the way that this website is meant to do is it's meant to educate you of the available smart contracts that you can engage with and purchase. And anyway, I get really excited about this, and I don't want to talk a ton about it because I want you to go and explore it. I want you to go and learn about it. And the reason why I want you to is because the smart contracts were the reason why I got into Dero and left Monero. And I'm telling you that this is a platform, a protocol that makes it really, really freaking safe and really, really private and really, really admirable too, to control my own assets. And so I could go on and just, wax poetic about it. And I hope that I haven't just bored you to tears with everything that I've talked about, but I love Dero, bro.
I understand, and no, you didn't bore me to tears at all. And I have a question, basically, I agree with you that smart contracts that are private need to happen. And right now, Dero is unique in that it has homomorphic encryption, but there's other smart contracting platforms like Zano or soon to be DarkFi, or you know what I mean? There's other efforts in this. How does Dero, I guess, differentiate itself?
So the difference is pretty clear. The intention is pretty clear. When I'm engaging with a smart contract, and when I'm engaging with people in a trustless and permissionless way, I need an audit, and I need an audit log, and I need open source contracts that I can read, and I can do it myself. Because when I'm engaging with random ass strangers on the internet, I want to be able to read in clear text what the computations are. And I want to be able to retrace all of the interactions with that smart contract. That's my own personal preference for when I'm interacting with a complete stranger online, when I'm selling assets online. It's something that I need. And if I'm going to be loaning money to people, or if I'm going to be borrowing money, I'm going to want to see an incomplete audit log of how that machine works, because I know that there are too many shady ass scams out there. And if they can stick the whole damn computation inside of a bytecode box that I can't read, and I can't reverse engineer, and I can't, audit the owners of the contract, fuck, I'm not involved, bro. And I don't care how hard you try and sell private smart contracts to me. Private assets make sense. Agreements that we do on the network, we need to be able to verify those agreements on the network so that when user B, who bought asset from me, user A, goes to sell it to user C, the way in which he sells it matters. And if he wants to sell it through the smart contract and have it observable and auditable, he can do that. If he wants to go and sell it privately on a secondary market like derolist.com, he can do that, and that will be private. That transfer of the asset from one party to the next, because it goes from wallet to wallet, will be private. So you can have you can do sales under the table, right? You can do that. But, you're going to start involving trust. And either you're trusting the developers of some hocus pocus box, or you're trusting your own damn eyes, or you're going to go and build. That's how crypto works. So anyway, that's my strong opinion.
We've been going for a little while now. Even we had the power outages from the lightning and stuff. But what haven't I asked you that you want to say?
Well, you didn't ask me if Captain is dead. So that's good fun. No, Captain's not dead. He's alive and well, bro. He's great in the DMs. He's hilarious. Right. One of the funniest guys I know. Let's see. What's some of the other FUD? We talked pre-mine FUD. We talked smart contract FUD. We talked copy pasta FUD. Dude, we've been through all the different FUD. What's the one that you haven't? We didn't talk price, which is cool. We didn't do any price speculation, which I appreciate.
Yeah, technology and how can we use this to set up a fair level economy?
Yeah, I mean, the question you haven't asked me. That's such a good one. The question I would probably ask is Secret, you talk a lot. Where can I learn more?
All right. Yeah, fair enough. So how can they learn more?
You're welcome to stop over at my Twitter. It's kind of a joke. It's kind of fun. You can check out my funny website, secretnamebasis.site, and kind of see what I'm building. It's kind of a fun little thing. You can go find the secret Discord server. If you can't find it, come hit me up. Yeah, I'm always around. You can hit me up. You can actually write a Dero message to me if you want. I'm secret name basis, all lowercase. So yeah, I'm here for you guys. I love Dero.
Well, man, I can't think of a better representative for Dero. You came on here, you spoke with passion. So thank you so much for coming on the show, dude. This was amazing.
Thanks, man. I really appreciated the time, and thanks for the space. And I'm really excited to follow your show. You have some really interesting cats on this show, so I look forward to what you got in the future.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to, focus on privacy.
Nice, man. Well, I appreciate that. And how can we learn more about you?
I mean, you can check out my podcast, .paranoiamachinery.com.